Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of the Buddy Study Group for Worksite Solutions. Today we're going to review some case studies. I think it's a super important topic to make sure we continue to cover. I know there are several of you on the call who are working with an active group case with us, but many are not, whether you're here or watching the recording. I know there are a lot of people in our community with interest who have yet to dive in, so we want to give you an idea of what live cases may look like, how they may develop, some of the nuance in the conversation, in the plan design, in the implementation, and really kind of put you as close to being in the group as possible in that enrollment without actually being there. The more we can kind of impart that knowledge ahead of time, I think the more you'll know to expect when you have a group case that you're ready to work on. So if you are working on an active case with us, or you have a case in mind that you think could become active soon, feel free to shout it out. And we're happy to walk through how we would kind of analyze that case and build the case with you. But for now, I think it makes sense for us to review some of our cases from this year and kind of what we've learned. And guys, they're not all wins. I'll be completely honest with you. There are obviously really good cases, but we don't want to just talk about really good cases. We want to talk about cases that maybe have a mix of wins and shortfalls, and cases that I think are pure wins and cases that are pure shortfalls. When we dig into the whys of that, that's where the real learning comes from. And it does not just come from success. As a matter of fact, most of it does not come from success. So that's how we kind of want to break it down. Mark, thank you for getting the memo and matching with me today. Um, what do you generally look for in a case study, just so we can set the stage? I've got a few of them. I want to kind of expose people to different sort of formats of groups because we've had them in all shapes and sizes this year. But what do you generally look to get out of a good case study?
I would say something that's, a realistic prospect for a lot of people in the community. So I like the fact that the standard goes down to 3 lives. There's a lot of those business owner cases where they want to take care of the long-term care problem for all of their key people or all of their employees entirely. Um, when they pay for the plan, the employees keep that plan. It's really a legacy for that company that says, I care about you.
Hmm.
So I love the nature of the product. So that's the case study I would look at is some of those like closely held businesses or professional groups, with 3 to 20 employees. And those are all very much manageable. Even if you don't have a big team, that's where we can help you as well with the enrollment piece of that puzzle. But so I would say that's where I would start case studies. And then, obviously voluntary and larger group cases are certainly in the mix as well.
Yeah, I mean, the first case study I kind of had on my list was very recent, actually. I believe the plans just went effective a few days ago, but we had about a month-long enrollment from June to July, and this was um, 11 employer-funded lives for a California group, and this was 100% employer-funded with the standards group whole life. Um, I mean, the obvious success here is that it was our best premium per life case of the year. For an 11 life group, I think it did north of 50,000 a total premium. And those cases where the employer, you know, cares and has the motivation to fund that level of benefit for all of their employees for a small group. That's kind of right in line with what you're saying. Those small, closely held groups that really have a heart for something like this, have a heart for offering rich benefits. And what adds a little bit of a bonus to that is that these are generally quicker cases from beginning to end. Obviously, a lot of it can be spent lining up the employer funding, getting a sense of budget, things of that nature. But I would say the big success for that one was obviously it was a nice premium case, but it kind of hits on the exact case studies that you're looking for. And it's a very realistic case to find out there. So I
Yeah.
thought that was a good one to mention.
Yeah, I'll mention other things about that. It's almost like I teed you up there, Jason. I didn't realize you had the
That's
exact
right.
same case study. But you're going to have situations like that, especially with small groups, where really one or two carriers is going to be the fit. So whenever
Right.
it comes up with California, small group, it's a clear winner with the standard
One
of
avenue. Yeah.
5%. So that also makes it easier for you because you're really not having to shop the market too much. I mean, I would still do your due diligence, but pretty much it's going to come down to one and clear finalist, and it's about does the client really understand the value of what they're getting there with that product?
And I believe this was a property management firm. So it's not like if we were saying, where are the good groups? It's not as if we're putting on the billboard property management firms, but it is a generally higher income sort of group, right, to work with. And at the end of the day, I think that is generally a industry that doesn't have as much turnover with those small, closely held companies. So again, you've probably got some decently tenured employees there that, makes sense to fund a benefit for. I think that is sometimes a concern we can get. I don't get it too often, but sometimes, hey, there's a lot of turnover. I'm concerned about just funding a benefit and it's just going to turn over, turn over, turn over. And there's going to be constantly new employees coming in and out. At the end of the day, not having to fund that plan for an employee who does end up leaving can really, set things at ease for a group. Um, when that premium is no longer their responsibility, but of course, also dealing with the billing of those employees coming in and out. So I wanted to mention that case for all the reasons I mentioned, but also as that group hires employees, again, this is a pretty high level of employer funding. So when you do get new hires aboard, that is more and more premium added to that case as it goes if culturally they're funding all of their employees or all employees in a specific class or of a certain tenure, that's the real benefit is keeping that relationship going so that you can keep that mechanism running.
Yeah, I would also say, from a psychology perspective, when we're talking to the study group, we're talking to 50,000 of annual premium. When I'm talking to the client, I'm usually quoting it monthly premium, just like you do a lot of times with your individual clients. So 4,000, right, a month, much more palatable. They start to think about it in terms of their other monthly expenses, right, as they're tracking their budget throughout the year. And getting in early enough to get into their budget is also a key part of the equation. So you start thinking, putting yourself in their shoes, it does come down to what's affordable for them, being willing also to go down on price. If the client is just like, it's not something I'm comfortable with budget wise, get half the benefit for half the price, $2,000 a month plan. Still a good offering, but you really have to, help the client understand their options, be consultative,
You need to ask good
but all or nothing.
questions. Yep.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. That's a good point. Just thinking about what would give me sticker shock if I saw a bill for 60,000 a year. I would lose my mind, even if I was a business with the cash flow to do it, just because businesses are very cash flow positive doesn't mean that they're not susceptible to sticker shock. So I like what you're saying and putting it in terms of a monthly expenditure, or for those larger groups, especially, PEPM really helps. The per employee per month premium really helps to put things in perspective. Obviously, you can show them the figures in all forms, right? But I think when you introduce it, that first impressions are lasting, right? So I think the way you introduce that program and the effects on the budget, including not overshooting the budget, uh, really, really make a difference in the ability to sell. So, Mark, I had a couple other like themes to pick case studies from.
Hmm.
Let me know which are interesting to you. We have an association where we have enrolled its members and its employees. We have re-enrollment case studies, which now that, we've got a couple years under our belt really working with groups day in and day out. We've got re-enrollment case studies that we can always go over. We've got kind of larger non-traditional employer groups, like franchise. Any that really stick out to you in your mind?
Actually, I wouldn't mind going a little bit deeper into the small group market because,
Okay.
like I said, I think it's really key, and then we can expand out. Do you mind if I share my screen real quick?
Yeah,
Because
go for
I
it.
want to show some of the things we put together. So this was a similar group to Jason's. This one was in Illinois. We're still quoting it with a broker BGA partner. They were interested actually in the standards product as well, but outside of California, it's more commonly going to be the term to 100 with the 5% inflation on the monthly benefit. So much more affordable type of plan. And just to Jason's point, this was 12 lives, on the census. There were also three managers that we ran kind of a separate executive level quote for. And again, this is, for the higher level of GI coverage, which is 200,000 of long-term care and 100,000 extra death benefit with the restoration rider, 6,000 a month for long-term care with the 5% inflation, under 2,000 a month for everybody, $140, per employee per month. So you can really make use of these tools to really get quickly to that bottom line number for your clients. And I don't know, Jason, if you want to share the census quote. But essentially, that's what I did to run this, is
Yep.
I'm just pulling in the census into our sales tool. We also have a report that has been quite handy that kind of combines with this. You'll see this also pretty soon in the portal, where it just kind of breaks down, creates like an executive summary of their options for you, with the product and also different ways, different levels to choose from. So this might be a little small. Let me blow it up a little bit. What are the different plans? Just kind of breaking down the monthly, the LTC, the total coverage, just like we do with the quick quote tool. The different, types of options they have, how the product breaks down, and then just how to help them make, decisions and next steps. So if you need any of these to help you run with a small group case, we're happy to run these for you. This is, what we do every single day. But we also have the tools in the portal so you can run these yourself. So if you feel stuck, this is what I would suggest doing is just get some sample and run this through these tools, and I think it will give you some ideas as to who to present it to and how to present the case.
Yep. I think for those who are working closely with us on cases, there are things that we will run custom based on the ask, and they turn into really helpful tools that we start to use more often internally. And then we always work to try to bring the things that are really valuable, really repeatable, easy to generate. We try to make those available publicly in the buddy system. So that's kind of what you're looking at here. A lot of the times you're seeing some coming soon things and may not know it. But we do want to help drive a bit more analytical power when you've got a census, understanding the demographics, understanding the product fits, understanding what the group may need to think about in their decision making. So, yeah, I think small groups continue to be slept on a little bit industry wide. But you can really run yourself into some nice cases. Employer funding is basically a must on these small cases where we're dealing essentially under 100 lives. It's for sure a must in my mind. It just drives um, that participation minimum. It helps just really kind of it fits a lot of groups' cultural mindsets as well. A lot of those smaller groups are interested in employer funding. If we're going to compete with bigger corporations, we gotta, offer competitive benefits. And those small cases, if you can really stack them up together, you can have an incredible year off of, 2 to 4 nice small group cases, honestly. I mean, when we're looking at 60,000 a premium annually for a group just over 10 lives, just think about it from the perspective of business you're already doing, right? That's 10 traditional long-term care cases for some, right? So I think that's why we want to keep giving small group case studies because there are really good wins that can be had there, really strong relationship building potential. And again, some of those small groups are not just small groups that will stay small. They are small groups that are growing. So if you can get your foot in the door with a growing business and really provide value and a plan that they feel happy about, you're going to be on the other end of that when new hires start coming along. We've had some small groups that, seem to bring in 4 employees a year, starting at maybe 10 to 20 employees. So I think that's another really strong advocacy point for trying to get out there and meet some small groups and form some
Hmm.
relationships.
Yeah. Going to one of the other categories, Jason, that you had mentioned, or actually somebody is asking, and another Mark with a C. For a small group, do you already have the healthcare plan business? Is the question.
Generally, we don't. No, we are generally staying very separate from major medical, but we do know that it's a major budget pivot point a lot of the times. When we are talking about employer-funded benefits, often it is relative to how much am I, forking over for major medical for my employees. But also, I think a lot of the carriers that we work with have developed programs that will potentially help find major medical savings, not uprooting a plan and going with a completely different plan, but maybe helping folks who are Medicare age claim their Medicare and get coverage that they're happy with, take them off the major medical and save some money that way, looking at gap insurance. So, potentially raising the deductible on the plan, creating a nice savings, putting the gap insurance in there equal to that amount of deductible you increased and providing savings there. So I think that's like if you can provide value in those ways without necessarily owning or having sold them the health plan, that can be a door opener to employer funded
Mhm.
bandwidth.
My mind went somewhere else when he asked that question, Jason, which was, who am I competing against?
Yeah, that too.
Right? If you don't have the healthcare plan business, you bring in this solution. How do you know that you're going to win the business and they're not going to go to their broker to get it? And that
Yep.
is a real issue. You have to decide, are you going in to win the business and doing this as a standalone product, which we do a lot as well. You just have to be aware of, kind of the complexities. You have to manage that relationship or else, they may not go forward with you, doing the plan itself. Or you can partner with that broker. For us, what we see a lot is brokers that are doing retirement planning for the business owners, executive life or disability insurance. So they may not be offering the plan for the rank and file, but they already have that client relationship with the key decision maker who's
Yep.
deciding whether they want to do funding for the executives, and they might go top down. And those cases, we see a lot of times they will do an executive carve out, for I'll say 10 to 50 of the top executives, even for some larger companies, and then wait to do the voluntary later, just so they don't have to run into that benefit broker, and get into their realm. So they're
Right.
sticking in their lane, but they're bringing in these same products and doing the same type of strategies, but more adding on to, what the employer is already doing with the paying for their life and disability. It's just that tier that's missing. And sometimes they don't even know it exists. They don't even know group long-term care is here again and available in a very attractive format. So it's just bringing that awareness to them, partnering with them. That can get sold very effectively. And then if you want to enroll the larger group later, you have a much better chance because you already have the relationship having had a good experience enrolling the executive group. So now
Yep.
they can enroll the other 1,000 to 2,000 employees. We're seeing a lot of those types of cases. Again, partnering with the benefit broker sometimes we're partnering with the executive benefit broker who's competing against, the voluntary benefit person or the person doing their healthcare plan business.
100% and appreciate the way you framed that. And we oftentimes say, like on the study group, because we're individual and group minded, right? We are often saying that group long-term care is not so much competitive with individual as it is complementary of, and vice versa. I think it's the same way with partnerships with brokers. Oftentimes, you can come in if you take the initiative to position yourself as a specialist in this market. Because I know a lot of us out there aren't doing all sorts of group benefits. We're long-term care specialists trying to focus on long-term care, or, we work in other benefits, but we've got a heart for long-term care, right? I think you can position yourself really well to partner with benefit brokers because group long-term care has not been, what it is in the market today over the last 10, 20 years, right? It definitely had a slowing down, almost a disappearing from the group benefits market for a while and is back in a big way. So you're probably going to run into brokers who lack the education they need to implement long-term care successfully, right? So if you can partner up with that person, like Mark said, they have a lot of the really important access points that you need, right? They've got the decision makers or key executives kind of on speed dial and can get their ear, right? They've got the implicit trust of the group having successfully implemented other benefits. So combining that with your long-term care expertise can really make some magic. So yeah, as we've always said, I think that's a great networking opportunity to meet benefit brokers. They're always looking for ways to expand their business, their capabilities, and what they can offer to their groups, right? If they have a ton of existing group relationships and they find out about a new product that they can offer simply, that's a huge expansion of their business because they can go out and offer that to all of their current clients. So totally agree. Any others that kind of come up in your mind right now, Mark, that you think are good learning experiences? I'm just finding that we are really hitting our stride with re-enrollments of groups. So that's where my mind was kind of focused on some of these case studies. But if any others stick out to you right now, um, let it rip.
One thing that's I think about as well is what carriers do we have in the market and kind of work backwards towards how do I present this to a client, just may not be aware of this great option or this new option. I think we've seen maybe three or four carriers getting into the smaller group space just in the last 6 months or so. We have a couple of traditional long-term care products too that are worksite capable or even filed as true group now. So, look at kind of those clients that may have like a life secure plan. I ran into one of those cases yesterday. They were super big advocates for long-term care. They had life secure for like probably 15 plus years now. They weren't able to bring on new hires anymore, kind of similar to the Unum situation where Unum discontinued their products. It just took their broker to bring up the idea that actually we have this new generation of products that we can now offer because they still wanted to offer that plan. So for me, that wasn't having to sell them on long-term care. In fact, we got in the call yesterday and the controller, the accounting lead at the company basically started telling me about hybrid plans. I'm like, this is the type of client you want. It's
Hmm.
teaching me about, the hybrid market, that type of thing. And it just came down to, vetting his vetting process, right? Because he knew, just like a specialist would, what details to ask for, and then just showing him and being able to answer those questions really fluidly. So that was a really great opportunity and conversation. Now they had a traditional plan, but they were very comfortable going over to the hybrid side. And as we talked about some of the guarantees, of the life insurance, et cetera. But we also have those clients that have traditional and want to keep traditional. And that's why I thought, these new plans are going to fill a big gap is now we can say, okay, you have a plan that's an upgrade, or something you can offer to the new hires who don't have access to it anymore.
Yeah, your big thing, Mark, has always been if somebody wants something, give it to them, right? And we are right on the doorstep of really having the formal introduction of a couple of uh, traditional long-term care options to offer in this market. And even in our early goings, we had groups that stopped us at the goal line and said, we'd actually really like traditional long-term care instead of these hybrid plans. So I think you will run into preference if you've got some, sharp group decision makers that you're working with. But yeah, Mark just put a nice list for us of traditional options that are either out there now or coming soon. Um, I've got one more just because this was a case that kind of went dark on me for a little bit and just resurfaced like today, like this morning. And I thought it was a really good case because I got to have a lot of FaceTime with, a couple of the executives from the group. They were a non-for-profit in Texas. And it was kind of like that, a perfect cutout of that story that I try to tell with nonprofits being really good candidates for group long-term care. Um, as soon as we met, I just started asking about their experience, their interest in long-term care. First thing that the CFO came out with was, well, I saw a family member of mine really helped by a long-term care policy. I found out, through the broker that I was working with on this case that, worksite long-term care, group long-term care is available. We're a company that has always cared a lot about offering rich benefits to our employees. Um, Not only because that's just kind of in our DNA, but also because we're a non-for-profit. So we have to, compete with other companies for talent, but we can't necessarily do so on payroll. Um, but we generally do pretty well year in, year out, and generally have a surplus, which we are generally spending either out of want or need. Um, and so, employee benefits is normally where a lot of that goes. So we retain our employees very, very well because their benefits are good, even though we can't offer as much salary as, a for-profit organization. It was, I believe, a charitable foundation this group is. Um, so long story short, the sale did take a while. Still, at the end of the day, we had to do a lot of work in going through the budget, going through a couple of different plan designs. The CFO was very engaged, had a lot of questions about the plan. But we had kind of gotten ourselves settled right at the end zone, and their office manager left the company right in the middle of the actual conversation. And that upended things for, I would say, no less than 2 to 3 months plus. So I think that is just one of the lessons is that at any moment somebody could move to a different company and you may have lost a key advocate, but that doesn't mean give up and walk away from the case. It just means you might have a little bit of an uphill battle to allow the case to resurface again. And in my selfish perspective, it's like, dang, we put a lot of work into this case and it just kind of gets blown up and goes radio silent over somebody leaving the company. It's unfortunate. I'm going to keep following up though. I definitely don't want to lose all this work that I've put in on a case that's pretty nice with a company that I think is a great match. And just staying persistent. The broker and I just kind of layering check-ins every couple of weeks and not hearing anything back uh, was discouraging. But when you have the perseverance to just keep following up, just light follow-ups, not pestering them, but just keeping their head in the game. Hey, I know we went through all of this planning. The proposal is going to need a refresh 90 days out or more. Just these little things that let them know I still care about you guys doing this plan. I'm still here. Here's the update. Just here's where we are at this point in time. They just followed back up today and are ready to get back on track now that they've replaced their office manager. And we're going to have a presentation lined up in the next couple of weeks. So just for nonprofits as a candidate, number one, I think that was just a perfect fit. They had all of the anticipatory things I could think about for nonprofits being good candidates, but also just like staying persistent and not just walking away from the work you've put in because a case has had a setback. You will get a signal that this group, this decision maker is a good candidate to actually enroll this benefit. Don't give up on those. The sales cycle can take a while, just like individual does.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So,
had a similar case in New York actually with like 27 employees or so, not-for-profit foundation, philanthropic organization, executives and employees paid very well, hit the limit on what they can pay them with compensation.
Right.
So just looking for ways to, again, attract those key people, and long-term care, is right up their alley. And we had three options for them, even, in New York with 27 employees. I had to go to one of the carriers to see if they would, give us permission, but with all employer funding, the carriers get better risk and they're willing to a lot of times make an exception for those cases, even if it's below their normal minimum standards.
Yeah, and one of the other things I will say is because they're good candidates, it's a great thing. They're great to go after, but just no, logistically, they can be a little more white glove required, or may need mechanisms to work a certain way so that they can offer the benefit. One of those pieces was this group had a specific request uh, to do ACH billing instead of payroll deduction, and separated out billing for employee versus spouse. And a couple of reasons for that is they have to report every dollar of their expenditure to the IRS, to the state, because they are a philanthropic organization. So I also had to do a lot of work in trying to secure exceptions to do ACH billing. Not every group will be able to do ACH billing, but I put my pom-poms on. I went to the carrier wholesaler and I said, look, this is a really good group. Again, not many employees. I think we had 16, 17 employees, something like that, but they're looking to fund the GI Max and they're really, really engaged. If ACH billing is the only hill we have to cross to make sure that they can do this, I think it's worth it. And they ended up giving us a verbal exception if we're able to get the group app signed and get it in. But you may need to advocate a little bit more for these groups because they need some special handholding to make some things happen just because of the way they're structured. So those were a couple of the just boxed cases that I remember from this year that had good learnings. If there are any others you have, Mark, feel free. But I also created a little case study generator so we can just
Mhm.
beam a case
Mhm.
out of the ether to us and
Well, I
run them
guess
through our tools.
one thing I would say is I do think the larger cases are out there, more prevalent, and certainly accessible for everyone in this room. The key thing is you're likely wanting to work with their benefit broker in those cases. So it's really about forming a referral partnership where they're doing all of the other benefits. This is a benefit they'd like to offer. They just don't have the capacity or expertise to do it. So really, you're their kind of extension of their business. You're their LTC expert. We're your LTC technology partner. So it's easy to understand what everyone's role is in that. And those large cases obviously have a lot more upside to them just because they have so many more people that you can access. Um, it's a little bit harder to get employer funding, believe it or not, with the larger groups as it is for the smaller groups. Again, you have to think about, how do they offer other benefits? And there's a lot more, I'll call it political considerations in terms of going through a chain of command to get the approvals that are required and what are they already paying for other benefits and things of that nature. But those can be really good cases. So definitely be networking within those benefit firms, because again, they control a lot of those groups and it's easier to go through the gatekeeper than try to compete with that gatekeeper. And Jason, you kind of alluded to associations. We're seeing also kind of a resurgence a little bit of our association business. We've done that for quite some time now, but we're getting more carrier, I'll say, acceptance for it. So I'm seeing more proposals from different carriers. So we're going back to a lot of the associations in the pipeline. Those are going to tend to be the same type of situation as your large group. So you need to partner with somebody that has the decision makers trust already. So it might be the brokerage that the association owns, and they've offered long-term care before. They've just never offered group long-term care. We run into that quite a bit. I didn't know I could get guaranteed issue for my members of my association, just like an employer would get for their employees. So that's a big opportunity. Or it could be a broker that you're partnering with, like a benefit broker that's offering the life, disability, long-term care to the association members already. and they haven't adopted, the group long-term care side. So if you want something that has real big upside, some of these cases are, multi-millions of dollars of premiums every year. So they're, significant in terms of volume. You definitely could go after that. Now, any large case, though, just like any enterprise sale, takes longer, has more, kind of complexity to it. The good news is working backwards from the carriers is we're getting great proposals, offers for these groups. So I think that market is going to definitely grow just because of the access they're getting to product right now.
Yeah, you could be, looking at a case runway that's easily 12 months compared to 12 weeks when it comes to beginning of the conversation in general through the pre-sale to just starting the enrollment, just in procuring those proposals, because there is a lot of homework that a carrier generally wants to do before they are offering a guaranteed issue plan to thousands and thousands of people, right? You put your carrier hat on, they're going to want to think about that, right? There's obviously the law of large numbers kind of helps the comfort with the risk, but that's only assuming that they get participation in the plan, right? To a level that they are happy with. Um, that makes them feel comfortable that they don't just have a pool full of the unhealthy people of this 100,000 life group, right? That is a huge risk of adverse selection. So they're going to want to know your plan, right? For um, being able to drive participation. And obviously, that gets better and better over time as you prove yourself, which is why we're starting to see some more offers come back as well. But it can be an uphill battle. Not to dissuade, like Mark said, the best way to do it is partner with a benefits broker that is already their everything else, that cares about the way they offer and position benefits, even if they don't know a lot about them to start. That's where we have worked with most of our large cases. Very large benefit firms working with their existing clients, so they already have the access, they already have the relationship, they even already have systems in place for how they educate on and enroll benefits, but they need the long-term care expertise. And if you find that somebody is seeking that, they're a good partner, right? Because you're going to be able to provide them that value, but they care about properly educating on the plan.
Yeah, I put the carrier list in the chat, both the link to the portal where you can access the live list and then also the PDF. And you'll see on that list is also a checkbox for associations. So you'll see kind of the carriers that will look at those type of cases and potentially give you a proposal once they get through the vetting process that Jason mentioned.
I know we're getting kind of tight on time for quarter of, but I did create a little handy dandy tool, and we'll use this on future study groups too if we don't get a lot of runway. But I think one of the ways to just create case studies and discuss them and talk about how we would work through them is literally just create one out of thin air. So that's what I attempted to do here. We can click a button and kind of give ourselves a made up group. Um, we'll take away carriers to quote. We'll be the judge of that. But we can press a button and kind of roulette a case. It's not my old Wheel of Fortune. It's not as game showified. But this is all completely dummy made up data. The people in this census are not real. But let's just take a look. So for a group of 7 employees located in Texas, we are looking to fund 7 lives. And it looks like we are looking at ER funded and voluntary. We have a couple of spouses here that are on the census and a 3/1/27 effective date. So Mark, Texas tends to be a state that can have some wrinkles, I would say, with certain carriers. But I know Transamerica, because I just had a case in Texas that I sent them, their product is going to be improved in Texas come 1127 previously, and I can flip over to Product Buddy here
But
for
that's
what.
the only one I can think of actually that has any issues in Texas. All the others seem to be pretty good for Texas.
Yeah, I think any of the other wrinkles just may come with non-traditional, non-employer groups. But if we're going to Product Buddy, we're looking at 5 to 49. Now, we need to keep in mind that 5 to 49 is a very large range. If we have 7, we're really down to, in this case, the standards term to 100. We have their group whole life for the standard as well, and Transamerica. And you can see the case highlights actually show us. As of right now, we don't have extension and restoration. So Texas at this size of group actually brings us to kind of a one carrier lane, and it's down to which product, right? Whole life or term to 100. Now, what's different about Texas that I remember is that the whole life also has a 5% inflation on the monthly benefit, just like the term to 100 does. So I think that's a bit more of an interesting comparison. I think most groups will still go with the term to 100 for affordability's sake. Um, but at the end of the day, I think it's nice to show a little bit more of an even comparison. And some groups actually really do value the whole life story. I like a plan that's, in force, completely guaranteed premiums and benefits to age 121. Maybe a bit more of an executive play, or I have more budget to spare, but oftentimes the pricing disparity works out that oftentimes, and I'm going to download this dummy census real quick. Uh, and we're going to run this through census quote just to get an idea of the live pricing. So we have made a few changes to our census quote and the reports that come out of it, but it was just as easy as that. Drag and drop my census in here. You can actually see it's detecting 10 lives, maybe picking up the spouses. So we'll just treat it as a 10 life group for now, but just note that the census quote could automatically pick up employees and spouses. So you'll want to pare that down um, if you notice that. So just always confirm the numbers that census quote is giving you. I'll just call this dummy group. And we'll compare in Texas. We'll compare uh, the 5% inflation monthly only for the group whole life and the term to 100. We're going to work on the filtering of these plan designs to make sure you only have what's going to be available to the group. But why don't we look at a base plan of 25,000, and we'll look at higher amount of coverage at 100,000. Given our buddy offer for groups of 3 to 249 lives being 100,000 GI, we'll show them kind of a base plan, and we'll show them a GI max plan. You can also now, this is a new feature, add a custom amount in here. So if you wanted to show, for example, 45,000, we could do that as well, just to show you the feature. But when you hit review, oops, I gotta uncheck some carriers. Forgot to unselect. It will default to a wide variety of carriers. So just remember, you can also hit deselect all and then go and select your products. So I'm also showing you where there may be some user error to look out for, but we already selected the 45,000. Now, when we go to review, we can just check. I named a dummy group. Here's the census. It pulled in 10 lives. It generally sets like an effective date of 2 to 3 months out, just to give you an idea of what people's ages will be a couple months ahead. We think that's a best practice because for example, I'm 34 today, but I'm 35 tomorrow, actually. So if you made a census quote on my group today, I'd be 34, but at the policy effective date, I'd be 35. So you want to give accurate pricing respective to the effective date, because that can create a decent sized pricing shift. So you can hit generate quote, and what you'll get is a summary here, like a preview of what the term to 100 with 5% inflation looks like at that 25,000, 45,000, and 100,000 amount. And same for the whole life on the right three cells. So you'll also get what is the monthly benefit for each, what is the total monthly premium, how many employees are we looking at, and what's the per employee per month premium on this. So I generally save a PDF and I download the Excel. They are two different reports here. So the PDF, if I make it so, is just that PDF preview on paper. So I'll share both of these for you. Give me just one moment. Right, let's see. Dummy PDF, sure. And the PDF is really, again, well, first of all, mine's sideways, so let me flip it. I'm just showing you the Excel for now. The format my PDF came out in was not wonderful, but that is probably my error. And let me save the Excel quickly and share it with you. Just talk amongst yourselves. If somebody can juggle, feel free to entertain the group.
I'll answer some of the questions in the chat while
Okay,
I'm
that'd be
doing
great.
that. So
Oh,
a couple. Oh, sorry, Jason.
I'm
You
actually all set, but you
okay?
can answer questions still.
Just a couple of questions. So again, questions specific to which carriers are available and which markets. Definitely refer to that carrier list because you'll see group size, and Jason can show you where you can find that in the portal when he gets back into the portal. The question specifically was, associations in Texas, and believe it or not, yeah, we have almost seven options in Texas, but a lot of them are going to be smaller carriers or individual products that are simplified issue versus guaranteed issue. But the standard has told us for quite a while now that they filed for associations in Texas and they're close to approval. So, and the standard's been the most, I'll call it association friendly overall for us.
Yeah, and use of the sample cases as a pitch to a broker, um, I would say could be a good exercise. I would just actually go through the exercise with them live, like for one of your clients, how I can actually show you how we would do the pre-sale work and generate estimates for them and give them all the product information they need and actually narrow down to the products that are available or good fits for them. I think is a better way to do it because then you get them thinking about what might be my highest potential cases if we're going to work together on it. I also think after we just walk through this really quickly, I'll show a demo landing page just to give you an idea of how you can um, review a little bit of how we implement long-term care. But yeah, this is going to give us our actual employer-funded pricing here. So you can see for the standard, it's got the three term cells, it's got the three whole life cells. It's going to give the monthly premium for this group, annual, and the PEPM. So very helpful. And then individualized pricing for each employee. And if you separate it by job title, I don't know what kind of company has four front office coordinators, but you can take that class and you can actually carve out front office coordinators. I made this case generator for random groups, and it just so happens this group has 50% of their employees are front office coordinators. So I don't know who they're coordinating, but we do have their employer funded cost estimates that are just really nicely bunched together. So you get that nice summary and um, basically whatever information the group may need. And it's easy to run those cases through census quote. So if they want to see other iterations, very easy to just rerun the case through census quote. Let's see. After I was done here, I was supposed to show a couple of things. I think one of them was a demo page. Was there anything else?
Yeah, go back to the portal real quick if you can share your screen. So I know Chris had asked about, what materials we have specifically, like do we have a checklist that lays out the likely process? So what I would suggest is that Start Here button, um, which really takes you through like a step-by-step process and a checklist. It also has links to a lot of the samples, like small employer group case study you see there. So you'd asked about, what can I present to a benefit broker? So just go through this and you're going to just come across a lot of materials that you can immediately, run with.
This will give you
Based
stuff you can easily digest. Expand the box if you want to read a novel and really dive deep for each of those sections. So I definitely recommend reading all the way up to the box, and then for the brave, you can expand that box and get a lot more deep dive info. Yeah,
But yeah, go
this.
back to where you were going with the marketing and the demo pages.
Mhm. So in our marketing section, if we type in demo, it will pull up a number of different demo pages that we can look at. So you can see per product, Life Plus Care from Trustmark, Lifetime Benefit Term from Chubb, Transamerica, UL10 and Trans Elite, Term to 100 for the standard, Group Whole Life, and then we've got the inflation protection options for the standard whole life and term. And we've also got Aflac's term to 120 in here that is new. So when you do click through any one of these, you can hit open link, and what it'll bring you to is a sample landing page with a accurate calculator for Aflac's pricing. So you can walk through with the decision maker and say, here is how the plan works. But also, how I like to use it is like, if you enroll in this plan, this is how we will implement the enrollment and educate your employees, right? So just talking through some of the educational content we have, this will be the calculator that will be available, to the employees of the group. Um, Talking about the fact that we do educational webinars really help to quickly get people educated about the most important pieces of the plan, all sorts of helpful FAQs, enrollment steps. We can make long-term care specialist consultants available. There are some times where the broker is that specialist. So just kind of walking through what will happen when the enrollment is implemented. That's what I find really, really useful about these demo pages, and the calculator, of course, gives you an accurate look at the product that you can review.
Hey, Jason, while you're there, because I just saw it after you take out demo. So we have the new agent guide there. Do you want to also share that while you're here? Because
Of
I think there's
course.
a lot of really helpful information in it, kind of towards Chris's question.
Yeah, of course. So this is really designed to help people understand how to work with us, how to work with group long-term care. So we spent some time building this guide uh, big enough to have a table of contents. And this is something that we will, over time, continue to iterate and add to. We plan to fill it with case studies and all other sorts of helpful pieces. But it just kind of gives you some talking points. Why should I get into group long-term care? Um, some just protection market talking points and how long-term care may fit into that, an idea of what we are here to help with as far as underwriting offers, the tools, technology, service, even if this is for, to allow you to meet brokers and explain to them a little bit of what we do and help with. Um, and then some ideal group long-term care companies to look at or pursue. It's not an exhaustive list, but just some, I think, good candidates for this. Um, Easy opportunities in your own area to try to surface some group opportunities. Notes on how we classify groups by size or certain attributes, a quick numbered list of how we generally see the process going at a high level. Again, you can go to that sales process page to get a lot more on that. some tips and tricks for running the meeting with HR or whatever decision makers you're in front of, which of our tools to use and when to use them, which I think is very, very helpful. Some notes on what we look for when we're quoting groups, product buddy run through, quick quote run through and description, census quote run through and description, our carrier list, commission split levels, how to get contracted, and some recommended marketing materials that we have available. And that's about it. But I think a lot of what that agent guide is based off of questions that we've been asked or what we run through on a first meeting with a broker. So we wanted to make sure that was available to you. So you should see that with a big honking news sticker on it in the marketing section. And I know we're running a little low on time, but Gretchen, are there any other updates to the section that you wanted to give some love to, some play to?
Uh, no, nothing else that I can think of off the top of my head. We do have some things that are coming out related to the tools. So there'll be another release email coming out. So just wander into the portal probably on
Yes.
Monday and you'll see some updates.
Click marketing, click through the tools.
Yeah.
We are updating faster than our brains can even keep up with. So
Yeah.
you will constantly have a lot of really new, exciting toys to play with, materials to, send to some of your top prospects. We just kind of want to continue putting good content in front of you that will help you continue to get the knowledge you need to feel comfortable and really allow you to know what to do when you have a case at your front door. So just continue to be on the lookout. We're happy to take any feedback of items that don't exist yet that you would like to see that you think would be helpful. And other than that, I think that's all I got for you today. So thanks for being with us and taking a ride through some case studies with us. Really appreciate it. We'll have definitely more throughout the year too. Be well, and we'll talk to you this time next week. Appreciate it, folks.
Okay.